So Judge Joseph Mason scored this fight 117-111 in favor of George Kambosos. That's crazy. I scored this fight in favor of Maxi Hughes, as I'm sure most of you guys did. There is no way on God's green earth that you could come up with a 117-111 scorecard in favor of Kambosos unless you're legally blind or there's some type of funny business going on. And by funny business, I don't know what that necessarily entails. It could be incompetence. It could be the judge sitting at his desk, swigging some whiskey from a flask. It could be the judge has been wined and dined by one of the promoters. It could be brown envelopes under the table. I don't know. I can't tell you the specifics. What I can say is Maxi Hughes was the sharper boxer of the two. The commentators kept saying that Kambosos was much faster than Maxi Hughes. That's not what I saw. Hughes had the faster hand speed to my eye. He was the sharper. In terms of overall athleticism, yes, Kambosos looked overall more athletic, but there are many aspects of athleticism, hand speed being just one. I mean, Andy Ruiz has arguably the fastest hands in the heavyweight division, but is he the most athletic fighter in the heavyweight division? Certainly not. Okay, so you can have slower hand speed than your opponent, but be more athletic overall, definitely. So perhaps they were referring to Kambosos' overall athleticism, I don't know. But in terms of just hand speed specifically, to me, Maxi Hughes had the quicker hands. Southpaw, shorter guy, shorter arms, but he was very sharp on the counter. He was walking Kambosos onto shots. He was landing his left hand to the body early in the fight, and he was just bossing it. It's not like he was beating Kambosos up necessarily, but he was definitely getting the better of it. Kambosos was coming forward. There was some type of aggression, but ineffective aggression. Really wasn't landing anything. Maxi Hughes was absolutely flying by the midway stage of this fight. In fact, he was flying to such a degree that I only gave George Kambosos 1 round in the first 6. I struggled to see what else I could give him in the first 6 rounds. Now, to be fair, Maxi Hughes did fade a bit later on in the fight, and I think the clash of heads might have been the catalyst for that. Obviously, in a fight where you're concentrating, where you're having to move a lot, where the guy's applying a lot of pressure, you're going to get tired in most instances. But Kambosos was spurred on when Maxi Hughes got cut. And obviously, Kambosos got cut himself, but Maxi Hughes got cut by a clash of heads, and that seemed to spur Kambosos on, and Hughes started to fade from that moment, the way I saw it anyway. And I did give Kambosos a couple more rounds in the second half of the fight, but still nowhere even close to enough to give him the fight on the scorecards, and certainly not by this ridiculous margin of 117-111. The other scorecards, Gerald Ritter had it 115-113 for Kambosos. I mean, that's a push. The third judge, David Sutherland, had it 114-114, a draw. If you really pushed it, and if you really wanted to see things for Kambosos in a somewhat plausible way, maybe you could get a 114-114 scorecard, but 117-111, I mean, that guy's taking a biscuit. The one consolation prize for Maxi Hughes, not that it can make up for getting jobbed on the cards, but he did have the crowd on his side at the end of the fight. And bear in mind, neither of these guys are American, and this fight took place in the United States. And the crowd were really on Maxi Hughes' side. They felt he'd won the fight, just like most of us. But he's obviously going to be bitterly disappointed at that result. And this is what comes with not having a major promoter on your side. And it is sad that fighters can't go solo or sign short-term deals with promoters and still get a fair shake when it comes to officiating. But that's just the world we live in. And it goes far beyond boxing, of course. But in boxing, this type of thing is maybe more common than in other aspects of sport and society. And it's more public. You know, it happens on a world stage live on television. The politics were obviously favoring Kambosos in this fight. In the post-fight interview, he made out as though he won by numerous rounds. Well, on the judges' scorecards, he did. But on the fans' scorecards, he certainly didn't. He got shown up by a fighter who he was expected by many to beat comfortably. But Maxi Hughes has always been a good little boxer. He's a seasoned pro, been around a long time, and he's learned the trade, at least in the ring. Outside the ring, his representation was obviously lacking. And I'm not saying he's wrong for that or criticizing Maxi Hughes at all. I'm just talking about the realities of boxing. If you don't have an Eddie Hearn or a Frank Warren or somebody like that in your corner, stuff like this is more likely to happen to you. And it's not that it never happens to their fighters, because it does. But it's less likely when you got a powerhouse promoter in your corner. And again, that gives these promoters more power than they should have. You should be able to go solo or sign a short deal and get the same fair shake as any other fighter. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. I doubt there'll be a rematch. Was there a rematch clause in a contract? That would surprise me. Many people are saying that Kambosos is a one-hit wonder. Well, we will see on that front. Obviously, he lost to Devin Haney twice in pretty one-sided fashion, got schooled. He's really lost to Maxi Hughes here. But it weren't so long ago that Teofimo Lopez, the guy that George Kambosos beat, was also being called a one-hit wonder for the Vasyl Lomachenko performance. Because remember, he lost to Kambosos, then he had that shaky performance against Sandor Martin, a fight that many people thought that he lost, only to come back and defeat Josh Taylor in impressive fashion. So I'm not going to write George Kambosos off just yet, but he clearly doesn't like having to deal with fighters that have any type of slickness about them. Kambosos doesn't have the highest boxing IQ, at least not on the front foot. He much prefers when a fighter comes to him. This is why we say that styles make fights. Anyway, I'll leave it there.